You've seen that trailer for months, and now finally in theaters, it's The Creator.
We have a non-spoiler review for you of The Creator. We know that a lot of you guys are very excited about this movie. We've got a lot of good feedback about our quick little reaction video we did. Lots of folks asking about it. So I promise you we are not going to spoil anything here. But we'd love to have you subscribe if you have not yet. We are so close to 25,000, you guys. This is my little goal for us this year. I'm hoping we can inch toward 25,000. We'd love to have you come along for the ride, especially as all the big fall movies and all the potential awards contenders are out there. So come and hang out with us.
We can't go to heaven because you're not good. And I'm not a person.
John David Washington is a special forces guy. It's the future. It's the year 2065. And it's a world in which humans and artificial intelligence have lived side by side peacefully for decades. We see a whole montage in the opening of like, they're everywhere. They're among us. They're chefs. They're track stars. They're astronauts. And we all live peacefully until, oops, supposedly one of them drops a nuclear bomb on Los Angeles. And this has now created this huge rift. And all of the West is in a war against AI, except for a place called New Asia. They are still thriving there and everyone's coexisting peacefully there. It's sort of an amalgamation of various Asian countries. And a lot of the imagery that we see from this part of the film looks like what we see in Vietnam War films. There's definitely, that's one of the themes that we are hitting hard here. He has been tasked with finding this purported weapon, which could be the salvation of humanity, but also its destruction. We just don't know. He's living this peaceful, quiet life in this charming little beach bungalow with Gemma Chan, who is his wife, who is pregnant. But he gets forced into finding this weapon. And the weapon turns out to be a little girl whom he nicknames Alfie. This is a spectacular looking film. Absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
Gareth Edwards, who did Rogue One. It looks really, really great. And it has the look and feel of really serious and really provocative and original sci-fi. For the first hour or so, it's got so much to offer. Some really startling imagery. Greg Fraser is one of the two cinematographers here. He notably recently shot The Batman and Dune. And so there's like that same kind of look of like, it's kind of gauzy and ethereal, but also really startling and bold at the same time. And there's some really cool stuff with visual effects. There's this thing that hovers over everything called Nomad. It's this American military airship. And it like scours the jungles and the oceans with these beams of light. And it's really shocking and really startling. They use music very well here. They use Radiohead's Everything in Its Right Place in a very effective way during this nighttime raid. The first hour of world building is so cool. And then once it becomes clear, like the recycled sci-fi tropes on display here, it just gets more and more just dragging and just dull. Like you've seen this. Alfie is adorable, played by Madeleine Yuna Voyles. She's super cute, but she's essentially Baby Yoda. Right? She's essentially, she's Ellie in The Last of Us. She is John Connor. She's the kid from Midnight Special. You
She's
stick
11.
her you stick her in the middle of a bunch of stuffed animals and she's pretty much E.T. Right? Like she's adorable and this like there's an otherness about her, but also a humanity about her. And they really rush the emotion here with John David Washington's character, Joshua, forging this father-daughter bond with her. He's so skeptical. He is the obligatory reluctant shepherd who becomes this father figure. And it happens so fast. And they don't lay the groundwork for us emotionally to make that work. So when really supposedly significant emotional poignant moments are happening, we just don't feel them.
No, even though Hans Zimmer's score is working overtime to make you know that something very emotional, important is happening here.
Yeah.
This movie, I agree with you. It looks stunning. We complain so often about shitty green screen and like unconvincing sort of, half-baked visual effects. Like they really put in the effort. Like all of the robots have this cylinder in their head that, so like basically whenever they're in profile, you have to see through them, which is really hard to do, obviously, but they do that really well. Like you said, the Nomad stuff, the world building, it's all lovely. But the script does not hold together in terms of, I'm assuming that they are not making a movie to say, oh, AI is great, we should all embrace it. Particularly now, that's a weird choice.
That's part of the problem.
but even as a metaphor, it still doesn't work. Like, they don't define their terms well enough, and they don't make it very clear as to like why we're supposed to believe that the AI means us no harm just because they say so. Because there are some moments of evidence that suggest otherwise. And like, I frankly kept waiting for like the big Twilight Zone ending to be that, you know, because this child is so adorable that like humanity just, you know, buckles to the AI because, oh, it's Baby Yoda, you know, like I think that there's a story that's a story that you could like Rod Serling it if you wanted to, but it's so wishy-washy about what it's even saying and how it's presenting it that it's hard to sort of grasp onto either it's a metaphor or even if it's literal, it just doesn't work. And so that took me out of the film, and absolutely the emotional arc for John David Washington is really rushed, and so you get an ending that is unearned
and lacks gravitas.
Very much so.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then we got to talk about just the inadvertently awkward timing of a movie that says maybe AI isn't such a terrible idea after all, given that is what the writers were striking against for the past 5 months.
And
SAG-AFTRA is still on strike, understandably so. And so
authors are mad to find out that their work is being fed into these AI machines to sort of teach them how to write. You know, all the news is bad lately. So the timing for this particular plot line is like, ooh, okay.
Yeah. But then as you say, like if it's a metaphor about racism, about just otherness, otherness in general, you know, that feels simultaneously like heavy-handed and empty. Like the script. So Gareth Edwards co-wrote the script with Chris Weitz.
Yes.
And it's just not there. But what's so frustrating is like for that first hour, I was totally into it. I was sucked into it. And it's like, it's over 2 hours long, but still feels ultimately really superficial and really empty and really rushed. Like how do you do that? Like, so what is that disconnect there? I'm trying to figure it out as I think about it. I'm so torn still thinking about this movie.
Well, I mean, you hear this all the time where people will say that how studio execs don't understand that sometimes making a movie a little bit longer actually makes it feel shorter because you're explaining things and you're, you know, like creating these sort of character connections or whatever. And so, yeah, this is a movie that feels too long, but also too short, because if they hadn't rushed stuff, then we'd be more invested in it and we'd have been more happy to sit there for 3 hours or whatever. But as it is right now, it just feels like, this incredible buildup, and then it just all sort of dissipates.
And that bond between John David Washington and Gemma Chan, which is crucial to all of his motivation, also feels kind of flimsy. We don't get enough of laying the groundwork of that to make his subsequent actions and his, you know, sacrifices make sense. Allison Janney has like a moment here and there to show a little bit of vulnerability, but she and the rest of the American military are essentially like plucked from a James Cameron movie, just swaggering and shit talking and just all bravado. And like, is that meant to be a parody of how America sees itself? I guess if so, that's trite.
Well, I mean, like you said, there is some very Vietnam War-ish kind of moments there. He's inescapably making a commentary about sort of American imperialism, which I think leads to the idea of the metaphor of, in any war, like one sort of nation will dehumanize the people from another one. You know, there's that great, I don't know if you ever saw that movie Joyeux Noël about the World War I Christmas truce. At the very beginning, you see like German children reciting these poems about like how awful the French are, and French kids doing the same about the British or whatever, like that. And it's this thing that the thing about nationalism that sort of grills into you. They're like, we're great and everybody else is horrible. And so the idea that you're dehumanizing the enemy and the enemy isn't even human in the first place is a cool idea, but they don't really pursue it as well as they might have.
Yeah. So which number?
I eventually just had to go straight down the middle with a 5, because I think there's stuff that works so well, and then it just doesn't stick the landing. It doesn't land. It doesn't reach the impact that it should, and it pretends like it does, which is really frustrating. So yeah, it left me very very torn. So I went with 5. What about you?
I'll say like a 5.3. I gave it 2 stars out of 4 when I reviewed it for Ebert. So I think, yeah, I'm right there with you, just very torn, very frustrated. But I know a lot of you guys are really psyched about this movie. So please let us know what you thought. We'd love to hear your thoughts. There's so much to chew on here. So chime in and join us.